The word economy is borrowed from the Greek word oikonomia, which essentially means management of household. How well have we been able to manage this household of Nigeria in the area of, economy? Right. That's our focus on the program this morning. It concerns you and I, so let's do this together, shall we? We have joining us on the program to do this, as you've seen right there, Professor Kenny Faye, Development Economist and Lead Consultant, Economists Commission. It's good to have you on the program, Prof.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
And right here in our Lagos studio is Mr. Paul Alaji, Senior Economist, SPM Professionals, Fellow International Management Consultants Board, USA, and Fellow Institute of Economists, Nigeria. It's good to have you on the program.
Good morning, and thank you so very much for having me.
And gentlemen,
compliment of the season.
Well, you took that right out of my mouth. I was going to say compliments of the season. Well, when it comes
Are you sure, Kayode? Go ahead anyway.
Well, you don't trust me anymore.
I still do.
But, it's good we're smiling, having a good laugh. Because when it comes to the economy, there's that saying that the economy is not smiling, really, in Nigeria. And I'd like to begin with Professor Kenny Faye, who's joining us virtually this morning. I know that you also have, data about the sub-region by virtue of your position. But let's talk about Nigeria. Economy-wise, how would you describe 2023 for Nigeria as a nation?
Well, our country has been ailing. Our economy has been ailing for quite some time. But what happened in the middle of 2023 is that the new administration tired the honestness. And what that means is that we faced the stark reality of where we are. And what that now meant is that we have to switch to managing either expectations or managing speculation, depending on which macroeconomic index you are looking at. You take them one by one, you will know whether you are managing expectation here or whether you are managing speculation. Obviously, when you come to infrastructure, it's about expectations of what people's expectation. You come to inflation, it's about managing speculation in the economy, especially the way it has hit the forex. We've come to food insecurity, is about people's expectation. There are things we can do, there are many things we couldn't do. You come to insecurity, you come to economic growth, you come to exchange rate, you come to their sustainability. It's all about managing the expectations of people. So each one presents its own unique challenges, but I can tell you that most of the solutions that you actually need are here and now. It depends on how much of it that we are willing to engage. The one thing that you cannot take away from the administration is that the political leadership has demonstrated a very strong desire to do something positive. Obviously, many decisions have been taken. When you stare the honestness, what it means is that you actually, the worst case scenario stares on your face. And then the issue now is, what measures have you been taking to contain these? And then how soon will they kick in? Many measures are in place, but how soon will translate to better standards of living, lower prices? Obviously, if you see, for example, the action taken on fuel subsidy removal, as badly as it has hurt and continues to hurt, but at least you can begin to see light in the end of the tunnel when NNPC is now switching on the refinery, and then you now see Dangote refinery coming in. So it doesn't spell the end of the crisis around fuel subsidy, because it goes beyond just bringing in PMS. The price rise has to be managed because it does affect transport. It knocks out, transport is almost threefold increase in the price of transporting the goods and the grains. And on the other hand, those who are manufacturing, it still affects them. The high price of the petrol, diesel still adds substantially to the input costs. But these are some of the things that we will unpack in the discussion. Right. But what I can say is that there is hope. We can't give up hope. We cannot give up Nigeria for anybody. There is hope. But as we go through the discussion, we'll see where those rays of hope lie, and then where we can do more to help our country. but it's not an easy time for us.
Well, I know that the lifeblood of economics is data, putting figure to issues. That way, it's easy to approach, you're able to proffer solutions, and of course, monitor if things have gotten better or otherwise. And for you, looking at Nigeria's economy this year, what kind of rating would you give it? Would you describe it as good? Would you describe it as excellent? Or otherwise, on the one hand. On the second hand is, you talked about some of those tough decisions that the government had to make, steering the hornet's nest, as you put it. I think a lot of people might be on the same page with government saying tough decisions need to be made for our country, Nigeria. We've seen how we've carried on for years. But I think the question for a lot of people is, were they well thought out? And I'm talking about the removal of subsidy, the actions that followed. Did it look like the government actually thought out these decisions? For a lot of people, they thought this wasn't hitting the ground running. We can talk about the Forex as well. Was it well thought out? Did it look like the government had its acts together when it was making that decision, such that it had planned for at least some of the eventualities that followed? Prof.
Actually, you are quite right. The decisions that we are taking were necessary. They were absolutely necessary because the economy was pushed to the cliff. So, I mean, something like fuel subsidy, everybody has been saying that for over 10 years. So that decision was necessary. But there are questions about the extent to which they were thought out. We all agree on that. In many programs, we keep saying that, oh, this is desirable. You see, sometimes you can say some of these steps are necessary but not sufficient. But the fact of the matter is that some of them could have been thought out a lot more, a lot better. If you take these items one by one, if you look at insecurity, people still, in terms of expectation, believe that there is yet to be dealt a decisive blow to insecurity. So it lingers in such a way that it frustrates, and people are still expecting that we need to have a decisive blow on insecurity. On food insecurity, again, people are saying, wait a minute, hunger is staring at our face. And I think the administration appreciates that. That's why they now announce a state of emergency. But the question is this: solutions actually do exist. Solutions to food do exist in the country. And you find that more around the application of technology, application of mechanization, making sure that the security supports the process, and then also progressive value addition. Because, you can say anything you want to say. If you are not adding value, then forget it. You're going to be on this for a very, very long time to come. You look at inflation, it scares investors. People, is eroded our purchasing power. It has reduced standards of living of our people. It has even rushed more people into poverty. So, and you look at infrastructure, yes, you can see some good things actually in infrastructure. You've seen the opening of the second Niger bridge. You've seen decisive investment in the roads, especially Lagos, Ibadan Road, and some of those. So there are work in progress in every highway in the country. You have work in progress, and the government is doing whatever they can to settle. But there is work in progress everywhere. It's not too good yet. We haven't completed most of them, but there is work in progress.
Right.
You look at areas like the exchange rate. Now that is a much more troublesome one, because you have to balance the supply of forex to the demand for forex. All the debate tends to be around the demand, and not very much is said about the supply of forex. And then we need to do a lot more in that area.
So, Prof.
So on balance, I think we are achieving more success than failure. Right. It's a work in progress. It's a work in progress.
So poor, below average, good, very good, excellent. What's your rating of the economy this year?
Well, I would say that it could get better.
Is that very good? Is that excellent?
That's good.
That's good.
It will get better.
Right.
It will get, because you've laid the foundation for the success you are going to see in 2014.
All right.
And it takes time. It takes time for these measures to come into effect.
Thank you, Prof.
It takes time.
Let me come to Mr. Alaji now. Poor, below average, good, very good, excellent. How would you describe the economy this year? And perhaps contextualize it as well.
So we woke up 1st of January 2023 when we knew at that time that we're going to have some cash crisis. Towards the end of January, it became even real. I remember the popular video I saw on your screen where someone said, pressure tiwa. Right. You know, I really don't know what that means. And for a lot of people, especially SMEs, they needed their money. We started seeing men going naked in banks. It was a horrible thing to behold. On national television, we started seeing some on social media. That was how we started this year. In crisis, cash crunch, that was really not necessary. I remember I granted the interview, you're part of the crew, and you have asked, must we do this now? Because the crisis was more potent. I saw your correspondent going towards somewhere in Ogun State, also interviewing people to feel their pulse. And I tell you immediately, former president, they met with President Buhari. We also saw governors who were not particularly pleased. And at FEC, they agreed that let both old currency and new currency be spent side by side. Remember, President Buhari did a revise that old 200 naira note should still be in the economy. But thank God for the Supreme Court eventually that put a clarity to that. After that, we went into election. And of course, we saw what happened during the election. Whether election was perfect is another conversation entirely. We are not talking about politics.
The economies of election.
Economics of election. Good enough, President Tinubu emerged as the winner of the election. And we saw what World Bank reported. World Bank quickly gave us a report in June to say that President Buhari is gone truly, but he has already given us a parting shot of 4 million poor people. And they also projected that if President Tinubu is not careful, by 31st December this year, 5.1 million people will be poor. Not my figure, please. I'm not the one that made that.
You mean an
projection.
additional
5.1 million between 29th of May 2023 to 31st of December 2023. Then President Buhari, his first economic policy was that subsidy is gone.
That's President Tinubu.
President Tinubu, I beg your pardon. Subsidy is gone. Immediately, filling stations started changing their prices. It was surprising that, hey, wait, the stock you had, nobody was willing to deal with the stock. The prices changed across, but a week after, we saw about 2 weeks after, because after that, Mr. Emefiele left office, we had the acting central bank governor. We heard about unification of currency. After that, we saw 48 items that were formerly out of the list. They came back to the list. And in spite of all of this, inflation continued to soar. In fact, it grew from 21.28% to above 28%. That is what we have to grapple with. So as all of these activities were going up, inflation continued to mount. It climbed above Cocoa House, which was about 26-story building. Now it's about 28-story, peeping into the 30th floor. I hope it will not get to the height of Burj Khalifa someday. So that said, as inflation continued to increase, President Bola Tinubu felt it's important for him to have ministers. We saw ministers into different ministries, even though some persons felt that the number of ministries we have is too large compared to the reality. But as if that were not enough, we saw legislature bought new set of cars in an economy where we just said we want to present supplementary budgets to borrow money to do what? Perhaps to import vehicles. Where is the money going to? Are we going to use it to develop our economy, or we're going to use it to develop other economy by buying cars from them? What happens to all the ones that we have bought? But some things happen all through the year. Oil theft was a recurrent decimal all through the year, and it's something to worry about. Then some people are 12% of the world poor people. They decided to live in Nigeria in 2023, and quite a number of other things. What happened to exchange rate, which is another major macro parameter we need to look at? Official rate about 400, parallel market about 600. That has been doubled. Official rate about 800, parallel market rate about 1,200. We also saw that gross domestic product, which we also use to measure growth in Nigeria, is slightly above 2%. Meanwhile, population is between 2.65% to 3%. That's the population growth rate. So we are really not growing.
So is that poor, below average, good?
Well,
very good?
all the viewers of this program know that we are certainly not up to average, and I will not want to blame the current president. And he got to office in few months ago. He's barely 7 months in office. And he also said he has felt the pulse of Nigeria. Recall that one of the responses the governor gave was to share bag of rice, even though we're against it. In fact, the president had first said that they were going to give monies to Nigeria. And about 4 people around Nigeria that had space in the national media said that will not be a good policy. And I was happy when I saw the president reversed that decision, that they were going to come up with a new strategy. The next thing we saw,
Mr. Laje, your diplomacy is appreciated, but we know that it's a continuing administration. You know what they say in governance, that there should be continuity. So it's the same APC-led government. So I'd like you to be categorical. Would you be giving the economic policies of the administration, when you reflect on the past year, an above average mark, or
I said it's below
average?
It's below average. In fact, the last administration, if you check the economic performance, I will tell you, other than infrastructure in few areas, Nigeria motorable road, when you say you can use, it's less than 50%. You can ask people, this is a national television station, you can ask people that have traveled to their different homes, how motorable, how good the roads are. And that does not mean President Buhari did not do anything. It also does not mean President Tinubu is not doing anything. We need about $100 billion, to go into our infrastructure sector. But how much are we really generating in revenue? Which is another thing President Tinubu's team need to pay attention to. Recall that about 5 to 6 weeks ago, the Minister of Finance of the current administration mentioned that 98% of all revenues is used
for debt
to service debts. And this debt, unfortunately, is increasing. You ask me why, even though we may not be borrowing more, the moment we devalue our naira, in the name of unification, all the monies we borrow that are external debt, the value has now increased. So if you have, for instance, if we are owing $20 billion, for instance, in external debt, now the value in naira, also for instance, let's say is about 2 trillion naira. You now multiply it by 2 to 4 trillion naira. Where is the revenue? Where are we going to pay from? Are we going to pay using dollar or naira? It is the same naira. And that is why we say, when you make economic policy, always remember that you cannot clap with one hand. You have to balance the two sides. You have to observe the two sides so that it does not come back hurting us. Yes. So the good news is that with all of these policy, subsidy removal, unification of naira, the revenue that is available to the federation has increased significantly, between 300 to 500 billion naira. It has now increased to between 900 to 1.1 trillion. And I'm not sure if at fact $1 trillion naira has been shared before. Revenue has been shared. So what should we be looking at? Is it possible for government to deploy most of this money into infrastructure? Unfortunately, the federal government that champions some of this economic policy cannot force the states how to spend their money. But where are the poverty? Are the poverty in Abuja, or are they where in Shashangi, or where exactly are people poor? These are conversations that I think that you have.
Perhaps that's the aspect of hope that Professor Ife is talking about. The devaluation of the naira, the FX reforms have led to significant increase in government revenue in terms of tax payment, income from company to the federation account and all of that. But what does this mean for overall economic planning, particularly for the budget? What are the implications for the collective aspirations of the people when you look at that increase in revenue as reflected in the ambitious budget that the government has put forward for 2024?
Well, let me first say that I differ with Prof on devaluation of naira. You see, as a Keynesian economist, if you want to destroy people, first destroy their currency. Before the Japan economy was crushed, it was first the currency of Japan that was affected. And we all know, economics across this country, that people's purchasing power has been emaciated. Before you devalue your currency, first question, economic theory, before you even go to apply, taught us is that what are you exporting? What are we exporting as a nation? Crude, to a large extent. Even the crude is stolen. And we don't have the capacity to protect our own resources. So Saying that will help us to a large extent, I don't completely agree with that. But the money we would have used in paying subsidy is what we have saved, and I agree with that 100%. And that is what we expect, that authorities will reallocate judiciously into infrastructure in helping people that are poor to come out of poverty, penury, and deprivation.
Do you see it in the 2024 budget in terms of allocation to meet the collective aspirations of Nigerians?
I tell you that I've looked at not just the federal government budget, but a lot of states that their budget have been passed. We have to struggle to get some of these states in our hands. I can tell you that to a large extent, there is no departure from the past. You know, we still see 70-30, 80-20 for most of the states, apart from very few states that are trying to make a complete turnaround in terms of their budget. Most states are still voting more to recurrent expenditure. Now, it is sign of insanity to keep doing the same thing and expect a major turnaround. So, do I think 2024 will be different? Except we do something different. But if you continue to do what we did in 2023, I can tell, because right now, most community are still complaining of what we started with in January. What was it? Cash scarcity is back. So, it's like going around in cycles without making any appreciable movement. That is what we're experiencing. So I can tell you that the allocation that the state is in different state assemblies and it's at the National Assembly, we need to do more than all of those. Even if we want to have conversation on the budget, is a different conversation entirely, because you cannot have an economy that we said that 98% of our revenue is spent to service debt, and we are looking at borrowing more. What does that mean? It means World Bank staff report that was published in 2022, which states that by 2025, Nigeria will need to borrow to service debt. What does that mean? We will not have any money for infrastructure. We will not have any money for recurrent expenditure. To now service debt, which is one of the key things we must do, we need to borrow money to do
What about the report of the current reduction in debt, you know, following the redemption of the Eurobond by the Debt Management Office? Does it offer some hope?
Yeah, it does. It offers some hope, but we are also going to get into about 6 trillion naira debt from the 2024 budget. So will the debt increase at the end of next year? Of course, it's going to increase. That's what the report says.
I'd like to also explore another aspect of, you know, hope that the FX reforms, you know, are bringing. But let's take this to Abuja. Nyota has some questions for you. Nyota.
Thank you very much, Bukola. I'll start out with a question to Professor Kenife. Prof, thank you for coming in this morning. There was something you said earlier in your submission. You talked about managing expectations and managing speculations. So I know you spoke profusely about that, but if you look at the amount of money that was shared, for instance, in Mr. Alaje talking about the valuation of the Naira and how the Japanese economy used the Japanese economy that was destroyed when their currency was dealt with, but of course the Japanese economy is back on now. There was an increase in the revenue, in the amount of money that was shared in December between the federal, state, and local government, which is almost about multiples of what was shared in the month of May of 2023. It points to an increase in revenue. And one of the things we've had back and forth in the Nigerian economy is a question of revenue, that there's not enough revenue coming in. What does it say of the policies of government so far, if we see that it looks as if the monies that are being shared between the three tiers of government have increased as at December? What does it say about what government's doing?
Well, the savings from the subsidy removal obviously has to go somewhere. And I'm glad that part of it is going to the states, because who wears the shoe knows where it pinches the most, and it is the states that wear those shoes that are closest to the poorest people and the MSMEs and the ground. So they get a lion's share of that savings, you know. And then of course there is some emphasis on leveling the playing field by doing some palliatives. Not that I'm an apostle of palliatives, but sometimes you have to understand that in economic development, you run two lanes. There is a lane, which is the fast lane for those who are highly entrepreneurial, give them little push and they generate the economy and regenerate it. But then there are those who are really at the bottom of the ladder that their life depends on whatever you can give them to survive to the following day. So you've got to have a two-lane traffic when you're dealing with economic development. So yes, it was helpful, but don't forget that some of that additional increase may well come from the devaluation of the country's naira anyway, and then the inflation, because inflation actually renders a lot of those increase, helpless. That's what I mean. So, but by and large, how it is applied is encouraging. But we have to do more. And you can see some states like Enugu State, their capital component is over 70%. If you look at Lagos, Lagos is always over 50% anyway on capital. So many states are upping their game in terms of capital investment. And then I like what I saw about health, getting as much as 7% of the budget. Now that was good. I hope education would have come to the same level, because that means that we are beginning to recognize that we have to invest in human resource development. And it was such a pity that we left that so neglected for a long, long time. Now, the issue that Paul mentioned about, I'm not saying that I support the devaluation. I didn't say that. Devaluation was forced on us by the economic circumstances. Inflation is being part of it, foreign exchange scarcity being part of it, all kinds of things forced it upon us. And so it's about managing that situation, And one more thing, of course, about the infrastructure that Paul mentioned. We began, you have to see the level of decay of the infrastructure, where we are 30% to 35% at the most stock of our infrastructure. Well, compare that to South Africa, that is over 80%. So, we have had huge neglect over 30 years of investment in the infrastructure. So it's about scratching the surface. We are putting money, but it's not enough. It's nowhere near enough.
Okay.
So we are going to continue to suffer. Rail has not worked. Rail is the cheapest way of moving heavy goods across long distances. To move goods from Katsina to Lagos used to be just one day. Now,
if I may come in here, in development economics, and someone had used this example before of how some societies had to shut out the world outside, look inwards and find the local products that they have that they can develop and then take out to the world. Now, you said devaluation was forced on us. Is it possible that our leaders or our systems could have stopped? Look inwards. What local products do we have aside from crude? I mean, you go to different parts of the country, you find different people creating different products and package those products for the markets outside. Do you think that was considered? And how is it that it's not even being looked at carefully?
I didn't get the latter part of your question. If you can just repeat that, please.
I'm talking about looking inwards to find products, local products that Nigeria has in the different parts of this country, in different pockets. You find manufacturing going on, maybe in small scale. Do you think that may have made a difference if we had looked in, pick up those local products, invest in those ones, and then take it out to the world? Would that have made a difference to our economy?
Oh, absolutely. Unlocking the potentials in the economy. There are measures. For example, if you listen to the speech of the president on the first day, he talked about credit. He talked about credit creation, and we haven't seen much in that area. And I did paint one picture. I said, if you take one manufacturing sector and allow the flow of credit into it, say there is a vehicle. Now, if you are making 10,000 vehicles today in Nigeria and you allow credit to flow there, targeted, the impact it would have is that immediately you displace 400,000 second-hand cars coming from Cotonou every year. Immediately double, from 10,000 cars, you could go to 100,000 cars, because people will put down 10% of the money required for the car, and the credit delivers the remaining 90%. And if this credit is dollar, then it means that they can actually import their materials. So you could see tenfold increase in employment, and then you see a displacement effect of 400,000 cars entering the country. And then you can go and drop your car after a year and take a new one And then, so that would change that dynamic. But I need to still see more action there. And then if you look at the 2 presidential orders that we are given, one of them is to unlock, domesticate any money that is in the country, unlock it. That is a very good measure, but we have to see how it gets implemented. Then you told the other about the 2 presidential orders. So there are work in progress. There are measures that are coming in, but they will take finite time to deliver. So that's why I said we have to be a little more patient. They're not doing, you can't say that they're not doing anything. It's such a troubled situation in such a deep rot in terms of the infrastructure that very little, anything you do will not be that visible because the level of decay is so much that you're only using road now. Inland waterways are not being used in any way. Rail is truncated, so it is very, and then you have deep sea port opening up in Lekki, which would obviously help on congesting the port, but also you need to be able to evacuate that. So where are the rail infrastructure ready to evacuate? You have over 5 other deep sea ports that are on the works. So the important thing is that are we actually making infinitesimal this project? The progress is being made. The policies are coming. You need to allow more time for some of these to gel. But
so I'll just take this to Paul Laje. Paul Laje, the Prof talks about the need for patience, but we do know that because of the state of things, many in Nigeria are not that patient. They want to see action. The deep sea port opening up in Lekki, fantastic. But then there are other ports in Nigeria that have been shut down, and many would say those are the ports that should have been looked at so that you move traffic, reduce the traffic going to Lagos and spread it. There's a Port Harcourt, there's a Warri port, there's a Calabar port, I think there's a port in Port Harcourt as well. If these other ports are also activated, that would also reduce the pressure and the need to transport those goods that are coming in. But then that would also point to the fact that many of our water channels are not dredged. And so big ships can hardly find their way into some of this port. In the course of all the savings that are happening, especially from subsidy, do you think these are areas that some of this money should go into? I do know that the spokesperson to the president spoke to us on the 25th of December, and he talked about the credit facility that the president and his team are working on for Nigerians, and it's going to come from the savings from the subsidy. Also talked about how that savings will also go into the students' loan scheme. But I'm talking about opening up the port, since Prof pointed at the deep sea port that's opening up and how that will make a difference in our transportation system.
Yeah, thank you so very much. I can also tell you that we are losing approximately 3 trillion naira that would have been contributed to our economy from Blue Ocean Economy, the new ministry that have just been created by the president. And the revenue that would have gone to government from that sector, it's about 400 billion naira. If it is properly managed. But we've lost all of those because of concentration to a large extent, over 80 or more % in the Lagos port. Nothing is happening in Calabar and a few other places where I've seen, I don't know if you see very functional, what is the port in Port Harcourt. So, but generally speaking, not so much is happening in all of these ports. But let's assume this port is even perfect. Are we going to be enhancing production or are we going to be enhancing import? I know that even when we import and they are functional, we're going to be having some kind of revenue come to us. But how will this revenue trickle down to our people? And I would say that this is where we have to be solution oriented. The port is important, we fix them and we need to make all of them work. But what is the point of having 40 teeth or 200 teeth that you cannot eat a piece of meat? Here's the point. Nigeria to develop and for our ports to be functional, even if we fix them now, we need to take this economy away from economy that is import dependent to economy that is export oriented. And how will that happen? First, we need to have plantation in almost all the states, especially 6 geopolitical zones of Nigeria, looking at what these states have comparative cost advantage on in terms of plantation. And we already have people that can help us almost on regular basis. We don't need to look for new recruits. Of course, we need people to add to them. We need locals to join them. But we need to look at plantation. The second one is manufacturing, production. We cannot just look at only port without having an holistic plan. And that is why my advice to President Tinubu is, before the end of February, he needs to have a team either to review the last national economic plan or to come up with an economic plan that will connect our factories to the market and rest of the world, our farms to the market and the rest of the world, and also in bringing investors to Nigeria to come and invest on what? Just to bring money to the capital market, or to bring money into our plantations, which I expect government to do, or to bring money into manufacturing sector, so that teeming youths, you know, spread all over Port Harcourt, spread all over Lagos, spread all over Sokoto. If you want to construct any, no matter how small it is in Port Harcourt, you see a legion of people coming to meet you to give them money. They are not state actors. And it's as though that has been accepted. You know, within this, and I just use that state as an example. It's all across Nigeria today, even here in Lagos. You see some people say you have to give them money, which is not factored into the project you want to embark on. And these are things to worry about, because when you go to some part of Africa, I've not seen this happen. I've not seen this happen in some Western countries, but just in Nigeria. How do we engage our strength? I've read in literature that our strength is not in the oil we have beneath our food. Our strength is in the number of young people that we have. But please, just walk around the streets and you see this legion of people roaming around. If we don't engage them in manufacturing and we don't engage them in infrastructure, it's going to be a big issue. But how will all of this come? The first thing first, why you're able to talk to me from Abuja and able to respond to you from Lagos, is because we have energy. Energy is everything. Electricity must be available in sufficient amount, and the affordability of the same must be reasonable.
Okay, Mr. Alaje, let me come in here. You've brought everything down to where I started off with Professor Ife. We talked about looking inwards. Looking inwards, what are our areas of comparative advantage? We do know that Nigeria, across the different zones of this country, we had plantations that we have. Rubber plantations, we have cocoa plantations, and till now we have palm oil plantations, we have all manner of plantations, pineapple growing in different parts of this country, different farms, but value addition is a problem in itself. But all of that, as you said, will require energy. And just before the last administration wound down, there was that, and the new Energy Act that was signed into law. At the end of the day, the states are now free to, on an amendment of the Constitution, the states are now free to invest in energy. Why do you think they're not taking advantage of this as quickly as they should? Besides Enugu State that seemed to have kicked up on its own, why do you think that many of these states are not keying into the opportunity or this opening to invest in energy and ensure that every part of their states is lit up?
Well, it's not part of the priority for most of the states. And the choice of leaders in Nigeria is not based on how the leaders have previously performed. Perhaps it depends on how popular, how financially prosperous these leaders are, how they are able to win electorate. Because whether we like it or not, at the end of the day, no matter how well we speak of economics, those who will make that decision really matters. If not, it's unheard of that at this time and age, Africa's largest economy, the economy that should understand that for the growth of the people, manufacturing is key, growth is key, plantation is key. If you go to Brazil, another economy that is the largest in South America, the focus of government now is plantation and manufacturing. In Asia, you either say either India or China, the focus of government in those two countries is how to improve manufacturing, agriculture and agro-processing. In South America, North America, of course, is the United States. In Eastern Europe is Germany, agriculture and manufacturing. But in Nigeria, what is the focus? The focus is completely different. It's more into service, more into administration, and so on and so on and so forth. So here is it. For us to get to that destination that many Nigeria hope for, whether remaining hope or renewed hope, this hope must be evident in manufacturing, it must be evident in plantation, it must be evident in production. If not, I hope it will not be hopeless.
Absolutely, and the need to look inwards, as I said, to tap into the raw materials. I'm going to follow up on that with Professor Ife. I know that you've talked about the policies that the administration has introduced, the presidential orders, but we must recall that these policies, these reforms, date back to the last administration. I'm talking about the ease of doing business. But it appears as if the gains are few and far between. If you look at the NBS report for the Q1 of 2023, 28 out of 36 states did not attract foreign direct investment. And even in the second quarter, foreign direct investment dipped by 33%. So what's happening here, Professor Ife? Why are the gains not coming in spite of these reforms?
Well, I think it would be wrong to focus all your attention on foreign direct investment. We have domestic investors who are also connected to the foreign direct investments. They say, for example, one man has invested $19 billion, and that is more than the foreign direct investment of many years of our country. And there are some companies that are foreign companies in Nigeria that want to diversify. It is only when they diversify that you begin to see their foreign counterparts support their diversification strategy. But we can't rule out. We'll keep underplaying the role of domestic investment because they're already here with you. They are aware of the situation. They are struggling, and then you encourage them. They could do far more than spending your resources saying, unless you have that signal of foreign direct investment, and then don't look at the definition of foreign direct investment in the first place. So I don't want to place too much faith on that. It would be nice. It would be really nice if we can have those figures coming in billions. But that is not the end of the world because you are misplacing your priority if you ignore the momentum of the domestic investments. That's one thing. Of course, there's some other hostages to that fortune called foreign direct investment. If you look at foreign portfolio investment, you also even have the same challenges too. They come in when you cough, they bugger off. You're not going to say, okay, because they are coming and going, then what happens? The world will stop. No, we have to factor the fact that they have a role to play, but that role is not decisive. Well, that's just what I have to say on this.
It's always good to look at all of the data, but we know that the president has been moving across the world trying to win investors over to the country. So I imagine that he's also has his eyes set on foreign investment and the rest. But as you said, it's important to look at all of the data. But I would like to thank you so much, gentlemen. Mr. Polalaje, I was going to ask, is there a way to maybe equip people with economic skills? Because they can't keep looking up to government. There's unemployment, some people losing jobs, inflation is rising. Is there an advice you have for Nigerians for the new year, maybe, just to arm them?
Well, for those people that have work already, they have 9 to 5. I will just tell them that 9 to 5 will not be nice. What is fine is 5 to 9. That is, having one job.
That's for you and I.
Is not sufficient.
Well, we work more than 9 to 5.
You will need another job because even your employer is not making more money. The value of money they make has reduced, and if they want to increase their price, there's market forces that will adjudicate price. So if you say because you're a single producer, you want to just increase your own because of economic crisis, what happens to your competitor? They may decide to bring their price, and some don't even mind if their business collapses. Will collapse or not. They just want to have money today. That is why everybody, we need to adjust. Our concern as economists is just that as all of us are adjusting, we want to see our leaders demonstrate that adjustment so that when we get to a better position, yeah, we are fine. We know we are at a comfortable place. 2, people need to learn new skills. You need to learn new skills. You need to learn on-site skills. There are remote jobs that you can do. Then organization always love for people that have these 4 attributes. Number 1, who can help us make more money? If you can help us make more money, in spite of all economic hardship, you will remain in the organization. 2, who can help us save more money? Tell your organization how you can help them save what they've lost this year, how you help them save it next year. Then you say that you'll be retained. 3, who can help our performance improve in the marketplace? Then you'll be retained. Number last, which is also very, very important, who can help us increase our market share? Market share is everything. If you are there, we are dominant in the market, then we are going to see you. Although that's microeconomics.
There you go, free of charge right here on Sunrise Daily. We'd like to thank you so much, Mr. Paul Alaje, Senior Economist, SPM Professionals. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much
for the program,
for having me.
as well as Professor Ken Ife, Development Economist and Lead Consultant, Economists Commission. Prof, we need to have you on that personal economics conversation as well in the coming days, but we thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And
thank you very much.
Season yet again.
Thank you.